Well, folks, Pacific Nations Cup back in action this weekend. The first game was Tonga and Canada, which I missed. That was the fifth place playoff. I won't spoil the result of that one in case you haven't seen it, but Fiji and the USA, and it's Fiji who are through to the final 22 points to three tries to none. Kind of a bit ugly at times. I don't feel like Mick Byrne just said in the post match, he didn't feel like the game like they ever really got their game going, and that's pretty fair. And Fiji, you would assume if they end up playing the likes of Japan in the final, will need to be a fair bit better. But the scrum looked good. That was at least one thing that's pleasing, and it's not surprising because the Fijian scrum, as again Mick Byrne said, has been pretty good for a while. But man, they dropped a lot of ball. A lot of the ball must have been slippery with the kind of humid conditions. They needed water breaks in this game. But yeah, just kind of worse handling from Fiji than usual for the US. I mean, the fact that they limit Fiji to 3 tries is probably not too bad. The defense looked pretty solid at times. Like, the tries they conceded weren't like catastrophically terrible. I mean, sometimes it was just Fiji putting on a bit of pressure. And they certainly had a couple of half chances, which if they'd converted, the scoreline could have been a bit closer. So certainly not all doom and gloom, despite the fact that they were limited to just the 3 points. We'll go through the events and stats and whatnot, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. And given it's midnight, I'm going to then go to bed. A pretty late kickoff for Japan. Japan often likes an afternoon game. This was like, I guess, 7 o'clock kickoff in Japan. So, yeah, kind of a late one. Finishes at just after 9 o'clock. So unusually late for Japan, and it was unusual to see Fiji going behind because I thought they would come out and kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck, but no. The US dominated the territory early and were able to capitalise on some Fijian penalties conceded at the breakdown. They got the first 3-pointer to give themselves a lead, and Ruben Dahasa's kicks were putting the Fijians under a bit of pressure territorially. They almost had a chance when Lopetti had kind of a half break in Fiji's 22, but they weren't able to convert. They kept putting some pressure on. 16 minutes, they had a second shot at goal, but Martina, the fly half, that's kind of half of those words together, he missed the penalty. So, yeah, could have had it 6-0, but just a 3-0 lead. But decent value for the 3-0 lead early. And then after the water break, Fiji just started putting the pressure on. And just after the water break, they had their first genuine chance of, like, is this a try or not? Darren Lungi pick and going from close range, but no, he ends up getting held up with the TMO checking that one out. But then this, Fijian scrum started going to work on the American guys. I mean, the American loosehead had already got off an HIA. He would come back on, but the first few scrums were basically just like free penalties for the Fijians, and they eventually got a 3-pointer out of that. So 3 points apiece. And then they got their first try of the match not too long later, and it wasn't magic, like out the backs, magic hands, offloads and stuff. It was just defense putting the Americans under pressure. Like, Fiji lost an attacking lineout, but the US guys didn't clear. The number 8 Tuavau got driven back behind or close to his own line. And then Tanakai Vata is able to pounce on some turnover ball and just kind of burrow over from close range. So a pretty ugly try. And Muntz with the conversion though. So 10 points to 3. Turning defense into points literally on this occasion. And that's the way the scoreline went in at halftime. Like, Epele Momo needed some magic spray on his hands, because he just was dropping balls before halftime. He dropped at least one chance out wide, and he dropped another from an American kick. He got subbed early on in the second half, and I don't blame Mick Byrne for subbing him because, yeah, a few chances going a begging with him out on the wing. But hey, 10 points to 3 halftime lead. The Fijian point of view, they'll be pretty happy to go into the sheds in front. They dominate possession and territory, but only just like 55%-ish. Especially good for them, given that they were not leading those numbers early on in the game. Turnovers conceded is too high from both sides, 9 and 10 with Fiji 9, USA 10, and penalties conceded 7-5 with the Americans with more. particularly a few at scrum time. But clean breaks is 2-zip to the Americans. Like, they have had a genuine couple of half chances. Whereas Fiji, none. Like, none of those X-Factor Fiji moments. Second half, Fiji apply more pressure. This guy, Fricka at fullback, was putting on a bit of pressure, shut down the Fijian move. The Fijian passing wasn't great. It was not that kind of slick, accurate passing that was needed to kind of beat the American defenders. The Americans were able to read the play pretty well. They did score maybe their best try, not their most entertaining try. But on 50 minutes, you get Draw Sesi down the left wing. He's come on, opens up a bit of space on the left wing, and then they shift it right months to Karawalevu with the line break, and then he's able to find Tanakai Vata. The pass is, again, not great. It's like above the head, but he's still able to take it and go over on the sideline. So 17 points to 3 with a great conversion from Muntz. It's starting to look a bit rosier for the Fijians, but that Ikanavere, he makes some bad decisions at times. He's got a little bit of ill discipline in his game. It's not the first time we've seen kind of dumb play from him, and he admitted to it in the post-match interview. Like, he said, he wasn't leading by example, and I think he's right. Like, just a poor clean-out, unnecessary on Paddy Ryan, head contact, and it's a yellow, which stays a yellow, but it's just, when your team's just getting on top, you don't need to be doing that thing. Like, it's, in terms of the ruck that he cleaned out, it was just unnecessary stuff from Ikanavere, but his team don't pay for it because despite the yellow card, they're still able to get their third try of the game. Definitely my favourite try of the game because of the Ravai carry, the big replacement prop. Like, again, it's wide ball, Ravai into space, and then he's in so much open space that he falls over and looks to maybe have blown up, but is able to offload from the deck to Karawalevu and then to Lomani, so they're still able to get the try. It's unconverted, so it's 22-3. But yeah, heck of an entertaining one to see the big prop in space and then just fall over with nobody around him, like with his own players around him, but nobody touched him. He just fell. So Benny Ravai, don't put that guy into space. He's one of the few Fijian guys who probably isn't used to that. So 22-3, that's the final score. There's no scoring for the final 20. The US actually did manage to put some pressure on towards the end of the game. They had a chance to score from 5 meters out. Line-out was a bit messy. Fiji end up pinching the ball. It looked like Pifaletti was going to go over from close range, but not to be. Augsburger looked to have a half chance later on, but he ends up knocking the ball on a tackle. So, yeah, chances, but how many taken? None. So Fiji able to see out the game kind of comfortably enough in the end. Still, turnovers considered as too high. 20 by Fiji, 17 by the US. Neither side will be happy with that. The US actually ended up with a little bit more territory, but Fiji 61%. They'll not be happy with having less than 50% territory against the US, though. Passes 175 to 102, so very different numbers. Fiji really chucking the ball around and having more possession. The clean breaks thing actually flips in the second half. Remember, it was 2-0 to the US in the first. It finishes 4-3, so a few more of those kind of X-factor chances for the Fijians in the second half, although the scrum improved in the second half for the US boys. Missed tackles, 34 by the US, 19 by the Fijians. Remember, Fiji had a lot more carries, so the US are naturally going to miss a few more, but they would have liked to miss a few less. Individuals, Tanaka Vata, 11 carries for him and a couple of tries. That's a good shift. Draw Sesi off the bench, 7 defenders beaten, added some spark. Nasila Sila makes 13 tackles. Augsburger had a couple of those clean breaks, so 2 of the 3 for the US. Tuavel makes 18 tackles on D, but yeah, tough day at the office for the US guys, but certainly not an embarrassing result by any means. Fiji will certainly need to lift their game, one would imagine, when they play in the final. The US have still got the third place game to go, so certainly not the end of the Pacific Nations campaign for them. Still one more game to go for the final, and then we've got Japan up against Samoa tomorrow to decide who's going to play in the final and who's going to play against the US in the third place match. Ken Laban keeps calling Caleb Muntz Muntz. He's the only guy I've ever heard pronounce his name that way. Muntz. You got everyone else, including What's the other guy's name? The colour commentator? Oh, his name's just gone from my head. Yeah, he was calling him months as well. But Ken Laban refusing to have a bar of it. Anyway, well done, Fiji. I'm off to bed. We'll see you guys in the final next week, probably against Japan. But we'll see if Samoa are able to get up tomorrow. You guys let us know your thoughts on the game. What did you reckon? Do you think Fiji can lift the Pacific Nations Cup if they perform like this? Or do you think they need to find another gear? You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.